current and then future, and you can tell that because the OI drops, right? So we're removing an expiry, and you can see that in the OI. So 212,000 in the expiration and 203,000 in the next expiration. So let's take a look here. This is a great example. So P-Trans sitting here, 217.5, kind of sitting here, and you can see it pulled back through. Here's another thing that I want to point out too. You see how this stayed above the zero? Now, so what is the zero? The zero in the complex is that point, that balance point that where the call gamma and the put gamma in the short-term expiries are balanced, and the math behind it's a pain in the butt. But just suffice to say, think of it as the center of the bowling ball or the balloon or some mass, right? The centroid. The zero is the center of that mass. Just think of it that way, right? And the fact that price stayed above that means that the first of all, it means that negative gamma was not being added. It wasn't being pulled down. So the first thing I want to just point out in looking at this chart before we talk about positive trans and what happened here is that, and just by the way, the other thing you can do, and um, um, you can also look at the history of these things too. So we'll let that populate here while I'm talking. And so we came down. I'm going to presume that the zero is fairly stationary. It may have moved a little bit, but the history that's back here, for instance, is not accurate, right? This is just projected back in time. That's why I ran the history chart. We'll go to that in a second. But so price came down. It came into this area where we've got the 21 EMA. Here's the 50, way down, right? And you can see it kind of got squashed between the 21 and the current level of the zero. We'll go back and we'll just look real quick here at the zero. Zero's been flirting around, right? So it's been kind of bouncing just between a couple levels here. Nothing major. It looks like 215 and 217.5 is where the zero has been bouncing. So fairly stationary and fairly stable. So we're bouncing right in this area where the zero is, and we're not letting the bears win here and pull us down. So what's that telling us? We're not seeing a bunch of puts being added to the complex or calls being closed. If we did, we would see the zero in this picture start to really drop, right? We would see something happening here. I think calls did get closed to a certain extent with the move that we saw on Thursday, and that's what this is telling us a little bit, but nothing moved here, nothing moved here, so I think it's just calls getting shut down a little bit, moving the bias point, the zero down just a little bit, and that's how I would interpret this. All right, so let's go back here and talk about P-trans. So P-trans coming across the line here, right? And, how far down you let it go, depending on where your entry is, it's subjective. But again, just realize, people are going to want to sweep you out, especially around the MA, right? So you're going to want to give yourself a little bit of room. You can see that it did zip into zero, or where the zero is projected now, but this 215 level, it did kind of cross down, but you can see it didn't close below that. That's a tell. That's something that I would think, is positive, and mentally I'd be looking at this. So, but you can see it crossed above P-trans right here. And again, we can go, I don't plot P-trans on the history charts. I'll explain that in a minute. It crossed P-trans, closed below, crossed P-trans, and looks like it held this one on this chart. So this would have been Wednesday on CAT. And then Thursday, looks like it just said, all right, we're off to the races. And, here we go. And taking a look at the history chart, you can see that the short-term gamma exploded with this thing. And that's what it is showing us here right now. Just so, by the way, for everyone who's watching, you say, well, why is this so noisy? Why do we see this? We actually get 17 slices a day, and we process them all and we indicate them. So when you see like noise like this, it isn't just like the end of day data. We're actually plotting what the data is telling us. We do that for data consistency because we want to know intraday if things are moving around a little bit, and that's basically what this is telling us. You can see though, we jump up, we do move around here a little bit. This is plus GEX plus gamma, so calls followed up and out, and that's the first thing to take away here. When you see calls move up and out, or at least up, we don't know how far out, but with an expiry, I think that it's still, it didn't drop. I think they did move, they did roll whatever they intended to do. We've got a bullish case for CAT here. So people are expecting and that price is going to continue to move, and that's because we see the positive GEX move up here, right? So the fact that this jumped with it is indicative of that more calls were added, and they were added at a higher price, is what this is telling us. So that's pretty cool. Now back to the moral of the story here. So when we see this crossing of this P-trans, we see that this typically becomes just a launch pad, and Dave's point, don't overthink it. Yeah, you had a confluence of the 21 with with positive trans, and we literally the next day, for whatever reason, I don't know when earnings were for CAT, but boy, this thing just moved up, and look where it almost shot to. Positive gamma, right? So it just, the dominant historical calls are sitting here at 220. We've got this positive gamma out here at 230. I just want to go back to this picture that I showed earlier today, this thing where, I was talking about how positive gamma actually is above COI more often than not. Positive COI is only above positive gamma, the flip of what I just said, only 37% of the time. When you take a look at this, here's COI, here's positive gamma. That's that exact situation, right? So whereas our older thinking was, maybe this was not as common, this is the predominant structure, and you're seeing it live, real time. You're seeing people adding calls here. This is a theory, right? We'll just have to watch it play out. You're seeing people add calls, and it's actually taking off here. So I think this is exactly one of those examples where if you had, prior awareness of CAT and you knew it was by P-trans, boom, here's one way to, potentially play it. Let's see if anybody here could have been awarded, in before this. So first of all, so David's run it. David ran it on the 14th. So Dave, you ran this on the 14th, right?
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, we had a breakout alert coming here on the 14th from TradyTix. It also showed up in some of the gamma scans. You ran it on the 13th. So David, you've been bird dogging this one, right?
Yes.
JB had it here on his scan. Mike, no, that was not it. Let's see. And then you ran it back at the end of March. So it's been on the radars here, at least from your perspective there, Mr. Olson, for a while. So, I mean, this is one way to, kind of track and see, see how things, things could play out. But yeah, this is a great case study for that positive trans movement, and also the stuff that I posted today about how positive GEX is actually more often than not, definitively over the last 9.5 years, above COI. And look where this thing ran to, right up to where the dominant short-term gamma is. So pretty impressive. I was not participating in this, but I'm going to watch it now and see what happens. That's a big move, right? That's a big move for a day.
Dollar-wise, it was big in a down market, and that's for sure.
Yeah. And just looking here, are we bumping up against overhead resistance? This is the minute chart for Thursday. Boom, take off, right, and just banging up against us. There's no real major dominance in here. Are we going to get a retest? It's possible, right? So we could actually pull back and come back a little bit, or If we start pushing above and bounce, and we could, even push higher, we have to watch and see what the gamma's telling us beyond, the next expiry. And I'll just tell you right now, I'm just looking at the charts, I can tell nothing really changes here between these two. So as of Friday or Thursday's data, market data, even though this is current data, um, we're not seeing a shift due to OE, so to option expiration. So we'll want to watch this going forward to see, are we going to consolidate some of this and digest it, or are we going to actually pull across and actually keep pulling higher? And it's this is a great study.
Doing, guys. On that, I've got to sign off, so I'll join you all sometime tomorrow.
All right, thank you, sir.
See you, David.
So I have a question on positive GEX
Sure.
because that's relying on price and delta. And if price is significantly under